Greetings, greenhouse people. I'm your host, Bill Calkins, and in an effort to provide this information in any way you choose to consume it, we are pleased to offer this discussion in video and podcast formats. My guest today is Broch Martindale, the National Nursery and Greenhouse Strategic Account Manager at Corteva. And Broch grew up in a greenhouse. He studied greenhouse production at The Ohio State University. He and his wife currently operate a greenhouse in Indiana, supplying cut flowers and fresh flowers locally. So Broch has a lot of hands-on and greenhouse experience, but he also has a lot of research experience and experience working with growers of all shapes and sizes and skill levels to produce high-quality crops. We are actually here in the gardens in Ball. It's pretty nice here, isn't it?
It is pretty cool, yeah.
A little warm.
Yes, it's warm.
A little bit warm today, but we're surrounded by thousands probably of beautiful flowers, maybe millions, maybe not. But what we don't have a lot in the gardens, but is our topic for today, are weeds.
Yeah.
And I know that because our team here at Ball who works in the gardens have done a meticulous job getting these beds ready. You had a chance to walk around,
Yeah,
right?
I did, absolutely.
What'd you think?
I thought they looked fantastic. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're gonna knock this podcast out so we can get out and walk around the gardens a little bit more. And we are gonna talk about weed control and prevention in perennial production, or any kind of greenhouse nursery production. And that's gonna be our topic for today. But we're about 10 days post-cultivate.
Yeah.
And the industry always talks about what you see and hear.
Yep.
Anything you saw at the event this year that you thought was cool or inspirational?
I think some of the automation things that are coming to the industry, I saw some robots that are starting to move plant material around. They've even outfitted them with sprayers, and so you can kind of have autonomous sprayers in your facilities. So overall, I think tech is going to be something we're going to continue to see at Cultivate.
Sure.
The other side of Cultivate is the energy level. I mean, anytime you've just gotten through with a busy season and you get that many people still excited about our industry, that's really cool to see.
Well, and I think growers, for the most part, had really good years.
Yep.
I mean, there was some regional differences,
certainly.
as always. Certainly, consumers are excited about our products. So,
absolutely.
and bringing those products to market is kind of our mission here at Tech on Demand. So we're going to talk about bringing perennials to market and eliminating some of the pain points that come with weeds in perennial beds and perennial production. As we sit here, the team here has been working really hard. A lot of greenhouse and nurseries have been working really hard this time of year, but we're going to try to help them work smarter by using some pre-emergence herbicides. So why did you want to talk about this? What's the inspiration for this topic?
So if you go back in a number of years, I love perennials. It's really just almost a passion of mine. And so I recognized that a lot of times the perennial cycle, while we love our quick turn perennials, we also notice there's several perennials that really do better from that bulking up, planting in the summer or early fall, and then overwintering them for next season sales. And the challenge with that are the weeds at times. And so really, I've had a lot of experience in this space, and I get a lot of questions from folks about this as well. And really just trying to help think about reducing labor.
Right, that's what it does come down to, I think. And that's really good, and I appreciate you setting the stage. And I did sort of feign ignorance about weed control and production or prevention, but I do know how big of a challenge this is for growers. And there are a lot of ways to kind of skin that cat.
Yeah, there is.
And a lot of products to choose from, which I think is a big part of the questions. And as we get into the meat of this discussion, why don't we talk about how herbicides are selected? Because I got to believe there are specific products for different situations and probably some go-tos for controlling multiple weed species as well.
Yeah, so I think it's really important for growers to be able, think about all the different things that are sold in the industry underneath the term perennials. There's a lot, and so you're really looking for products that have broad spectrum crops they've been tested on, crop safety. So that's a really big one. That's probably what I would start with is number one when selecting a product is, does it actually work on the crops that I'm growing? And if that answer is yes, then this is a good, easy option to potentially adopt.
Okay, because you really are killing plants within plants.
Correct. Yeah, and so there's some science to that, and so really what you're doing is you're creating a barrier. You're creating this barrier that's on the soil surface that is preventing that weed from germinating, or in some cases, as the seed is germinated and passing through, it's actually controlling that germinated seed.
Sure. And when you talk about pre-emergence herbicides, that's got to be a better or more cost-effective way than once the weeds are actively growing.
I mean, like, and the other part about it is like, when do we want to ship these plants? We want to ship them in the spring?
Right.
What are we? We're really busy. Growers are so busy that time of year. The last thing we want to do is to have to send the crew out to go clean perennials right before we have to ship them.
Okay, and we are going to get into some of the best practices for treating weeds in the fall going into winter. But when weeds get out of control when temperatures rise. I'm kind of dreading going home and looking at my own gardens. I've been traveling a lot, and I got to believe some of them are probably knee-high. Controlling the cool season and winter weeds is a huge piece of this puzzle. When you work with growers, what are some of the best practices or tips and tricks you give them, or even products to use?
Yeah, so I think a lot of times the growers do a really good job of keeping the actual space where the plants are being grown clean and free of
like the rows.
The rows clean and free. However, the areas just adjacent at times, especially if you're doing outdoor production, could actually be where the bulk of this seed is being, generated from and blowing in.
Right.
With weed seeds, I mean, they travel quite a distance. And so you got to think about, like, it's not just feet that they're traveling, and think about really being able to, I consider it border to border of your property, having maintenance so that you're not necessarily the source of that weed on your property.
You've cleared your space, you've laid down weed cloth or ground cloth of some sort, but the weeds just outside of that are growing like a jungle. That's where the seeds are coming from.
Yeah, and if you think about some weeds, we're talking about over 10,000 seeds per plant. So one weed that just gets left is obviously going to, take off and cause some problems down the road.
What are some of the main weeds that we worry about in perennial?
I mean, I think about a few things that are. I mean, we get a little bit of mare's tail that kind of wreaks havoc, and the reason why that's a problem is because it's really long taproot. And it's hard to get it out, and you really do some destruction getting it pulled. But other things that are challenging are like spurges and oxalis. Those are really challenging, and I would also say bittercress. So kind of a wide range, both some summer and some cool season. Again, I think all those kind of have, different why that makes them challenging. Sometimes because they're really small. Like, as one issue. But others like mare's tail, it's just really tough to get it out of the pot without destroying the plant.
Yeah, that makes sense. And you are a really good resource in all this experience. How about some general best practices for weed control in a nursery? Like, what should folks have on their to-do list to start tackling these? And then we'll talk about some of the products they can use.
Absolutely. So I think you actually have a couple of different opportunities when it comes to weed control and what you choose to do. And so you kind of hit about it just a little bit, but people have, the ground cloth. And so there are some people that even though you have ground cloth, typically it's not brand new. And so there's holes in it. And so weeds can still penetrate that. And so we still have a fair amount of growers who treat that, what they call the bare ground, underneath the crop one way. And some of those products that are available that really do a really good job really last almost the season long control with that one application. So that's fantastic. Downside to that product is it maybe be a little bit narrow spectrum on crop safety. So it does a good job because it's not touching the crop. It's below it. But to think about using that same thing over the top wouldn't be the best idea. So then you have the option to think about an over the top application, and whether that be a granular or a liquid, those kind of become your different options that you can kind of play with and what fits your facility the best.
And then when we think about some specific products, I know that Corteva has plenty of herbicides in your portfolio. What can you tell us about them?
So a little bit of I think I kind of hinted at the concept of granulars versus the sprayables. I would say that sprayables actually are a little bit more cost effective. The downside is not everybody's set up to do sprayables in that certain manner as far as that application method.
What are the application methods?
I think a big boom sprayer going out over a big block is more effective than having somebody pulling hose and spraying. You're really ensuring you're getting a good even application compared to somebody putting it on by hand. Not saying you can't, just saying that from an application perspective, we see a lot more nurseries doing it like that and having really good success.
Okay.
When we think about not having the opportunity for utilizing
Liquids,
yeah, we really go back to the granular option, because that can be as simple as a belly grinder, and really is pretty easy. Doesn't necessarily need large amounts of space to lock down and close down for the application. It's pretty easy, and almost anybody can do it.
Right. What about specific products? Give me some product
Yeah, so
that you would
I mean,
recommend.
I'm going to start with Corteva product, but Snapshot is a granular option for perennial growers. It's really has a really also broad spectrum, both on the weeds and the number of crops that's listed for safety on.
Okay.
And so like it kind of fits the bill for around what the growers are looking for.
Right.
Another good option from OHP would be Fortress.
Okay.
So kind of brings in two different kinds of actives in there in order to make that one to cover both your grasses and your broadleafs.
Okay. And then I know that, like, we've talked about other products in your portfolio for pest control.
Yep.
And you guys do a lot of work on rates and calibration and helping growers know how much to apply, when to apply, how to apply.
Yeah.
Have you done that with herbicides?
Oh,
as well?
absolutely. That's probably some of the where we spend the most time.
Okay.
Especially when we think about the crop safety side of things.
Yeah.
I mean, there's an immense amount, and so it's not just enough to make that application. Rates really do matter, and so a lot of times, we're being a manufacturer, we're going to get the call.
Right.
Something didn't work. We want to take a look at it. We want to understand it better. And we can usually, by seeing what weeds aren't being controlled, we can then understand what went wrong.
Okay.
Mainly because if all of a sudden we're missing all of the high rate weeds.
Then it wasn't applied
at the high rate.
High rate.
Yeah. And so that's kind of the telltale sign that we see. They're like, oh, it didn't last as long as what you thought it, or what you said it did. That's one of the things we can use as well. You also didn't have the rate at the proper rate. So the rates really do matter. And we think about that and how important that is when you're making that. And there are some tools. And so a lot of people understand the liquids and how to get good rates there.
Yeah.
But granulars are kind of a little bit challenging.
Right.
And so we've got some calibration trays that we offer our growers and distributors to be able to use. And you can simply put the calibration trays out into the grow pads, growing area, and as you're going by, you can help calibrate and see, oh, am I applying at the right rate? And
so you can count or measure.
Yeah, it's got some corners in the tray that show you, like, this is the 200-pound rate per acre, this is the 150-pound rate per acre.
That's cool.
And they can really easily see if they're teams, because think about it. I mean, I'm 6.5 foot tall. Think about somebody else. I walk at a much faster pace through the facility than somebody else does, and so calibration is important.
How many growers that you work with take advantage of stuff like that?
Honestly, not enough.
Not enough.
Yeah.
I knew you were going to say that.
It's just
I feel like I
There's some great pictures out there. Some people have said that, pictures are just as good for us. Like we want to see what 150 pounds looks like versus that 200 pounds.
Okay.
And that's not a bad way to think about it as well. But again, I think that really kind of having, calibration training is super key. Just recognizing that not everybody walks the same fast. They don't spin as fast. Like, there's all kinds of different things that happen. And so calibration does make a big difference.
And it's probably good to have redundancy in your operation, not just one person who understands that, because that person's out for a week.
Yeah, what's going to happen?
Right.
Yep.
Huh. That's interesting. I'd be interested in seeing
what that looks like.
Look like.
We've actually even done some, we call it, some calibration rodeos.
Yeah.
And we've gone out to some folks that are trying to train big teams and help them with calibration and help their team get, up and ready for the season.
Contest.
Yeah. Yep.
Huh. That's actually pretty cool. And then we talked about the granulars. Are there any specific liquid products that you'd recommend?
Yeah, so I mean, Gallery and Dimension is our staples in our portfolio. Gallery does a really great job on broadleafs, and adding Dimension will help you take care of the grasses. I will say with that, you are gonna find that they're not necessarily a complete match for the same number of crops that they're safe on.
Oh.
So while there is some overlap, there are going to be some differences. So if broadleafs are your real challenge, and that's really where I see the most challenges for folks, even just straight Gallery as a broadleaf spray would be an option for them.
Okay. I mean, we know and we talked a little bit about the amount of labor involved in this. Keeping weeds under control, no matter if you're applying herbicides or pre-emergence or doing by hand, there's a cost involved.
Yep.
What are some of the products, how do these products that you mentioned help control costs versus a manual
Yeah.
weeding,
So-
and how much labor really goes into, because it's got to be kind of a hidden cost. I don't
Yeah.
think a lot of people are tracking it.
Yeah,
but you must know.
Yeah, I would agree. I don't think enough people understand just how much it costs to weed an acre, or you name this amount of space, but an acre of crop can be really labor intensive, especially at key times of the year.
Right.
And so we've got some calculators that we've built and have available to the distributors and growers if they're interested, want to reach out. We can happily help them plug in those numbers and their labor rates, and give us a little bit of information about what they're seeing, and we can plug all that information in and help them really kind of make that decision, how much you're spending per year in cleaning up weeds, or how much would it cost you to make a couple of applications throughout the year. And so I think that's the other thing. A lot of growers ultimately think about weed control as like, one or two times in the growing cycle, and that's really not it. You really got to think about weed control year long. Is a year-long thing. Now, I will say my southern growers all think about weeds all year long without a problem.
Sure.
But again, in the north, they got to think about those warm days. One sunny day in a hoop house or in a cold frame, and all of a sudden you're going to start the clock on that weed seed germination. Yeah. And so thinking about having the late season applications is absolutely key to being able to control weeds throughout the season.
When we talk about late season, what is that time frame?
Yeah, so there's going to be some verbiage on the labels. So again, and then I'm going to speak very generally, but on the back of most labels, there are some verbiage about some potential restrictions about having herbicide used under cover.
Okay.
And so that makes you kind of nervous, because you're like, you just told me we're going to put this on
our hoop house.
Yeah. And so what you're really needing to do is get that material on 2 to 3 weeks ahead of putting the plants in the cold frame or under cover. Yeah, and so that's the sweet spot. So you get it on, you get it watered in, and you allow it to have the 2 to 3 weeks of being out in the open, and then it's perfectly safe to put under cover then.
Okay.
Yep.
And then do you need to reapply in the spring?
Yeah, so then that'll carry you through. So potentially we think about this as a September, October kind of time frame, maybe even a little later, depends on where you're at in the country. But again, we're thinking about that September, October kind of time frame. And then we're thinking about an early spring application as soon as you are starting to move things out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's 5-6 months of,
Yep.
of control.
And it really does depend. Like in the summertime, as you know, this heat's driving a lot of water to keep things looking good. Same thing happens, so that does shorten a little bit of life of some of the products in the summertime. So you might have a few more applications in the summer, but the winter, the fall one really does cover the bulk of all the winter time, and then an early spring one will get you out into early summer.
Okay.
So,
and then here's a question I usually don't ask, but it always comes up in my brain when we're done. When should growers order these products?
Yeah, so I mean, there's many different thought processes there. I think that from a Corteva perspective, we offer some of our best pricing as an early order.
Sure.
So we do early order from October 1st through December.
It's got to be fall.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so we have that early order period. And so if growers are really looking to save money and save on cost, I think early order is really the way to go.
Okay.
There's also other opportunities to purchase during the season.
Sure.
The downside is, though, I mean, you are subject to supply.
Right.
And I'm not trying to spark fear into things, but
you never know.
At the same time, absolutely. There's been lots of things where there have been the rush that we had during COVID.
Yeah.
Threats of tariffs and other things that are going on in the industry. So I think it's just a good idea to kind of think about what your needs are going to be, lock in those things. I will say, one of the things that growers say to me the most is that they book their herbicides in EOP, and they buy their insecticides and fungicides a little bit more as they need, because there's not going to be a year that you don't have weeds.
Right.
Yeah, it's a given.
Yeah. Is there a shelf life on these products?
Oh, shelf life.
There is.
Yeah, there's absolutely shelf life. They are pretty stable, and we do a lot of extensive testing in order to allow for that.
Yeah.
Grower, if they ever have an issue about anything, they can always let us know and look up the lot number, and we can trace it back and let you know.
Okay. No, that makes a lot of sense. Is there anything we missed? Like we ran through a bunch of questions.
We did.
But I feel like this is such a big challenge, and it's something, like you said, that growers deal with every single year. Is there any Is there anything we missed or any information you want to share before we wrap up?
No, I think that the important thing is that you really think about the all year production.
Yeah.
And I realize the plants may be dormant, but again, you're still protecting them from having a lot of labor.
Right.
So I think that's really important. And also, we talk about this every time we talk about chemicals. Read and follow label, recommendations, and so that information's there for a reason.
Yep.
And if there's ever any questions about things, certainly reach out. We're always happy to talk through some things. Inevitably, there's plants that are out there that aren't on labels.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily that you can't.
Yeah.
But we don't necessarily always have them listed on the label, and
Right.
so reaching out to your local rep could also be a way to help solve some problems as well.
Okay. Are there any perennial crops you should absolutely not use herbicides around?
So this is going to be one that probably some folks would definitely agree with. Echinacea.
Okay.
There's no reason to put a pre-emergent on an echinacea. There's a good chance that you're going to ding up that crop.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Well, no, that's good. That's good to know. It just clicked in my head. I was like, I wonder if there's any straight up.
There's probably I would say there's probably, at least with our products,
Mm-hmm.
I would say there's a short list of probably 10 to 15 that you probably, and you think about them, you're like, oh yeah, I can imagine that.
Seen that. Yeah. Well, again, read the labels.
Yep.
Reach out to Broch and the Corteva team. They got a bunch of people. I'll definitely put a link to your website where you do talk about the teams and how you can reach out for technical advice. You guys are really good. What is your website again?
Oh, it's Corteva.
Yep.
Turf and Ornamental.
Okay.
US.
Cool. And I will put a link to that in the show notes. This has been great. And we're going to catch up soon because we've got another podcast planned.
We do.
And we're going to talk about a recap of 2025, which will be interesting. Any sneak peeks, anything that you guys have dealt with that you think will be on the agenda when we talk about that?
Oh, I don't know. I guess I'm already thinking about that early order period and what that really means. We kind of hinted at it now, but I think we're going to have a little bit more information to be able to share by that time as well. So
awesome.
Yep.
Well, hey, I appreciate your time as always. We got a lot to look at here in the garden, so we should probably get this closed up. And I feel like maybe there's some cloud cover right now, so we should go check it out.
Yeah. Awesome.
You're going to be around
for a little bit. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, we're going to go out in the gardens. I'm your host, Bill Calkins with Tech on Demand, and thank you for listening to this installment. We will be back. You got plenty more episodes in the archives to check out if you like information like this. Got a bunch more episodes with Broch in the archives as well. Till next time, take care out there. Control those weeds.